Okay, in this video, we're going to be working on the implementation of what was discussed in the previous one. So in the previous one, we went over the the player state, and what it's used for. Now we're going to work on that example in this one by making it so here's our game state.cpp. Anytime a player shot another player, we incremented a replicated variable. We're going to do kind of the same concept, but on the player state. So that way we can see the individual player hits as well as the total amount of hits. So we can say, okay, this player has this many hits out of total hits and that kind of stuff. So let's just dive right on in. First up, we're going to go to Settings, World Settings, and on the right hand side here, just like with our game state class, we can also change our player state class. So we're going to change this one to my player state, which is our custom player state, and save it. Next up, we want to go ahead and do the exact same thing that we did here. So on our game state, we had a function called player hit. We're just going to do the exact same thing, but on the game state. So I'm going to make a protected section for our variable. It's going to be uint16 total hits. We're going to have a public section for the function to call, and that's just going to be void player hit. I think that's called the same. Yes. Then we're going to do the exact same thing that's in here. Just if we have authority, going to handle it. So create the implementation, paste it on in there. So if we have authority, we're going to be altering our total hits variable. So I want to put this one on a player hit player state and server player hits to print that out. I'm actually going to, let's remove these simple logs. So I want to remove all of them except for the one that gets printed on the client. Actually, I want to remove all of the ones that print out the total hit. I think that'll be the cleaner route to visualize this. So let me go to the game mode real quick and remove the final one, like so. So now the only log we should have being printed, so we have one in our character as well on the server right here. And yeah, just our server on fire. And I think that is all of it. So what we're going to do, currently, again, on the server, we get access to our game mode and we call player hit on the game mode. We're going to do the same thing, but for the player state now. So if a my player state to include my player state.h equals ps for player state equals get player. Well, we need to get access to our ourselves first. So we should be setting the owner, I think, to our projectiles. Spawn params. Okay, we are not. So we want to set the owner to ourselves. So we have actor spawn params in our character in the onFire function. We're going to do actor spawn params dot owner is equal to this. So now in our projectile, we're going to get the owner, try to cast it, get the player state from that, and put it in the uh, store the variable. So if a beginner multiplayer character, actually we are already doing that but for the other character, so we need to do that for ourselves, the exact same thing. So let's rename it to shooting player equals cast a beginner multiplayer character from get owner. We want to get that player state, so if a my player state ps equals shooting player get player state, and let's see, this is templated, so we're going to cast it to a my player state. like so. So now we should have the player state. So now that we have it, we're just going to do PS player hit. Now let's head over to our player state. We want to replicate total hits. So we're going to do a U property. It's going to be replicated using, because we're going to have a onRep fire this. So U function void onRep total hits. There's our onRep function right here. So our variable is going to be replicated using onRep total hits. Let's create that implementation. And we want to print out a log for it. So the log we're going to want to do is UE log temp warning text. Let's do player %s. So we're going to get our player name as %d /%d of the total hits. And I'll show you what we're going to be doing here in a second. So let's get those variables. So the first thing is going to be our %s. That's just going to be ourselves, our own name. So we're going to dereference and do get, what's that other thing? Yeah, get owner, get name. Then the next parameter, we want it to be our total hits. And then in the next parameter, well, the last one, we want it to be the total hits of the game mode. So this total hits is the one that's on our player state. The next one will be the one on our game mode. So it's going to be uint 16 gm or gs hits. And sorry, I meant to say game state, not game mode, equals get game, or what is it? Game state. Oh, what is it to get the game state? Get world. Yeah, get game state. And it is a template again. So a beginner multiplayer game state base. Yeah, it just rolls right off the tongue, doesn't it? So we have to include it. So include beginner multiplayer game state base. From here, we want to go ahead. Oh, we want to actually, to be safe, let's make sure this is valid first. So let's copy that. So if a beginner multiplayer game state base gs equals get world get game state base, and then our type of the game state. So gs hits for the game state equals gs. Now we just need to create a function to get that value for us. So we need to open up our game state. So our game state base.h, let's create a public function. It's going to return a uint 16. Let's call it get total hits. And all it's going to do is return total hits, like so. So now on our player state, we can just do gs get total hits. And our last parameter is just going to be gs hits. So let's say the total hits is 10 and the gs hits on the total hits on our game state is 10 and the total hits on our player is 5. It'll say player, whatever our player name is, has 5/10 of the total hits. And that should kind of give us an indication of the comparison. So now what we're going to do is we want to replicate our total hits. So I'm just going to go ahead and copy our get lifetime replicated props out of our game state, paste them in here, include our /net or net/Unreal Network, and change a beginner multiplayer game state base to a my player state. Now we also need to set total hits equal to 0 in the constructor, which I forgot. And in our do rep lifetime, we want to set that to a my player state as well, because we're in the player state. I forgot to do that before I compiled. So we're going to go ahead and give this a test. And actually, we'll be on the client, so it'll be fine. So let's just see what what happens and what it prints out. Now I'm only printing out a single log on the client. So we'll test with one client just to ease, well, we'll do it with two clients just to easily read it without completely cluttering it. So here's our server, here's our client one, client two, etc. I shoot, hit the player, nothing happens. Oop, and we just got a good old crash, I think. Let's see here. Unwrap total hits on line 26. So my guess is it's related to our get owner and get name. So I'm just going to remove that and just have it be our total hits and game state hits. So now we just have the issue of it not wanting to fire. So I'm going to print out some logs along, well, actually better yet, I will just create some breakpoints. Place one at the game state and add our shooting character because it should have the owner. So hopefully both of these will trigger. Put one right at the end. And we're just gonna step on through it. Gonna test with two. See if the breakpoint triggers, which it does. So we are getting our player state. Let's step over. Calls our player hit. Over, make sure this is valid. Oh, it seems like it is. Without hovering over, we're supposed to show the variables. Anyways, so let's jump over again. Okay, we're on our replicated related stuff. All right, let's just place a breakpoint down at player hit. Continue. And remove the breakpoints previously. So we have our breakpoint at player hit. That fires. Next. Increments total hits, so it's going to 1. Well, should be going to 2 because it should say 2 now. Yep. Run to the end. And then on the other client, we go all the way back. Oh, so now it's printing out the hits. Let's see. Oh, I forgot to remove the breakpoint. So 1 out of 1 of total hits. 3 out of 3. 4 out of 4. 5 out of 5. Didn't mean to do that. So the client, for whatever reason, does not seem to be triggering it. So let's try to narrow down why. We'll try another, because he should be printing out a projectile on the server too. So this should be getting called. So let's shoot on the client. Okay, that's not being called at all. Go back to the projectile. See if we're trying to even cast, which we are. Okay, so getting the owner for some reason is failing, and I know why. So I made a mistake here. So pretty much getting, casting get owner to a beginner multiplayer character is failing because get owner, when the client shoots, is invalid. So let's go to our character and I'll show you why that is. Let's scroll down. So if we are the client, what we do is we call a server RPC. And that server RPC fires a multicast event that also fires a projectile. So what we're doing is we are not setting the owner properly. Well, we're not setting the owner at all, as you can see right here. So we're just spawning the actor without setting the owner. So what we're going to want to do is if as authority, because really the only person that needs to know the owner is the server. What we're going to do is actor spawn params dot owner equals this, just like we did in our on fire on the client or on the server, kind of like this. So we're doing this just to fire immediately, then our multicast ends up getting triggered and so on. So now everything should trigger. I remove the break. Well, yeah, I'll leave the break. No, I forgot. I'm not even launching with the debugger, so it doesn't matter. Let's shoot once on the server. 1 of 1, 2 of 2. Shoot on the client. 1 of 3, 2 of 4. So the server has 21 out of 23 total hits. As you can see, there was a replicated issue. But as you can see, 21 out of 23 was the server, and 3 out of 24 was the client shooting right after that. So 3 is the total hits of the client, while 24 is the total hits of the game state. So all the hits combined. So as you can tell, there's obviously some lag there between the variables replicating, but it's not too big of a deal. Just for testing, we're not setting anything like proper up. But that's an example of what you would do with the player state. So to kind of reiterate, the difference between the game mode or the game state and the player state, the game state is for example, it'll be something like that's team based or objective based that only needs to exist kind of in one area. So just one little value stored somewhere on the server that's replicated down to clients that you would want clients to know about, such as a team's total score, the what round you're on, and that sort of thing. So just anything like kind of that intertwines with the game mode. So in my case, for the Nazi Zombie series, for example, I use the game state to control the zombie spawning. So like how many zombies are gonna, well, how many zombies have spawned, how many zombies have died, and that kind of stuff. Now the player state is player specific. So game state is related to kind of the game logic. The player state's related to the player and kind of like the player's logic. So the player state holds the player's total hits. So how many hits has the player made? The game state holds the total hits of everybody. So the just total hits overall. So that's kind of an example of how we use this. So the player state's related to stuff for the players, such as total shots fired, total hits, kills, deaths, that stuff. And you can think of the game state as being more team oriented or something that kind of everybody needs to know. I'm trying to just kind of simplify this the best I can, but that's pretty much it. So, and as usual, well, yeah, that's literally where, yeah, that's all I can think of. So, I'm going to just remove these comments. Hopefully that was a decent explanation with an example that hopefully cleared all this kind of stuff up if you were confused at all with it. But yeah, that's just where I'm going to end it. So, as usual, if you like what I'm doing and you want to help support me, you can find a link to my Patreon in the description. And if you have any questions or anything like that, you can also find a link to my Discord server that's down there as well. As always, I will see you in the next video. See ya.